Hello everybody and welcome to the final lesson for level 1. We're going to be talking about dotted quarter notes. But hold on, we just have a regular quarter note in front of us, so let me just, boom, there we go. Now we have a dotted quarter note. Okay, so before we start talking about dotted quarter notes, let's just review what a dot does to a note exactly. A dot adds 1/2 the value of whatever note you're putting it on. So we're dealing with a quarter note here. Take a look at the rhythm chart to the right in the red. We see that 2 eighth notes equals 1 quarter note. So that means 1/2 of a quarter note equals just 1 eighth note. So that's why in the top left we have a quarter note plus an eighth note equaling a dotted quarter note. You can also think of it this way. Take that quarter note and split it into the 2 eighth notes it equals. Then you can see that 3 eighth notes equal a dotted quarter note. So let's see what this dotted quarter note looks like in some rhythm. Take a look at the top example here. What if we wanted to change that quarter note on beat 1 into a dotted quarter note? Well, let's do that. So there's our dot. But now, since that's a dotted quarter note, which is worth a quarter note plus the eighth note, there's no longer enough space for this first eighth note on the downbeat of 2. Okay, so that has to go away. So we're going to erase that. This eighth note on the and of 2 is all alone, so it gets a flag. And to show that I'm now holding the dotted quarter note to the downbeat of 2, I'm just going to put this little dash here. So what would this sound like? Well, here we go. I'm going to put the metronome on, and I'm going to count it for you, just that first measure. 2, ready, go. 1, and 3, 4. You can actually, I'll do it again, you can actually hear the metronome click on 2 as I'm holding out the dotted quarter note, right? Listen again. Here I go. Ta, 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 ta. Did you hear it on 2? And the next thing that you actually count is the eighth note on the and of 2. And just to let you know, look at the bottom rhythm. I can do the same exact rhythm by doing this. If I just tied this quarter note to the eighth note, that is pretty much the same rhythm as above, okay? And then here's what this would sound on the bottom. 2, here I go. 1, and 3, 4. Okay, so the rhythm up here is the same as the rhythm down here. It's just 2 different ways to write it. So what I'd like to show you now is another example, but this time the dotted quarter note is going to be started on beat 2. Okay, so first what we got to do is change this quarter note into a dotted quarter note. There we go. Which means that this eighth note on beat 3 can no longer be here. So we have to erase that. And then this eighth note on the and of 3 gets a flag because it's all on its own. What does this sound like? 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 4. You can hear the click on beat 3. Ready, again. Ta, 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 ta. And like the last example, you can also get the same rhythm by simply tying this quarter note to that eighth note, and this is going to sound just the same like this. Ready, go. 1, 2, and 4. So again, this rhythm on top is equal to this rhythm on the bottom. It's just 2 different ways to write the same rhythm. Okay, so what I want you to look at in this new slide is the top right. This is something that we've seen before. It's a quarter note plus an eighth note equals a dotted quarter note. But what if we flip that around and had the eighth note be the first thing? So eighth note plus a quarter note equals a dotted quarter note. Well, that may be kind of an obvious thing, but what's important to think of is starting with an eighth note first in that math equation. So for instance, look at the top left, the rhythm there. And what if we wanted to change this eighth note on the and of 1 into a dotted quarter note? So that means we have to erase this eighth note and put a dotted quarter note in there. And so since we have a dotted quarter note that starts on that and of 1, that means that we no longer have enough space for the quarter note on beat 2. So we got to get rid of that. Now that we got rid of that, this rhythm makes sense. And what does this sound like? 2, ready, go. 1 and 3, 4. Again, that's ready, go. Ta, 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 ta. So with that quarter note starting on the and of 1, that means the next note that you come in on is the quarter note on the downbeat of 3. And like the examples before, you could also represent this rhythm by putting a tie from this eighth note to this quarter note. And again, those two rhythms are the same exact thing. So this next slide just kind of combines all of the different kinds of dotted quarter notes in different places. So let's hear what this sounds like. Let's put it all together. 2, ready, go. 1 and 3 and 4. 2 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 1 and 3 and again on ta. 2, here I go. Ta 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 ta. Ta 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 ta. Be very careful when you're demonstrating this for me that you pay close attention to how long you're holding the dotted quarter notes for, right? Make sure that you're not clipping them or holding them for too long. I might suggest just listening back to this example maybe 2 or 3 times just so you can really understand how these dotted quarter notes work within this rhythm. Okay, so not only do we have dotted quarter notes, but we also have dotted quarter rests. The same amount of time just with silence, right? So there's the dotted quarter rest on the left, and on the right is kind of how it breaks down. We're putting a dot on a quarter rest. That means we're adding 1/2 the value of that quarter rest to it, which ends up being an eighth rest. So here you got a quarter rest plus an eighth rest equals a dotted quarter rest. And just like last time, if you break down that quarter rest into its 2 eighth rests, that also means you can see it this way. 3 eighth rests equal a quarter rest. So here we got an example using dotted quarter rests, but first look at the top measure. We got 4/4 time signature, and it starts with a regular quarter rest on beat 1, followed by an eighth rest on the downbeat of 2, which means that you come in on with the actual note, that eighth note, on the and of 2. And on the bottom, it shows you that you can simply just, instead of using the regular quarter rest and the eighth rest, you can substitute all of that and just use one dotted quarter rest, since that equals that. As you can see, the counting is the same from one to the other. What does this sound like? It sounds like this. 2, here I go. Shh, and 3, 4. Again, without me saying shh. Here I go. And 3, 4. So you're coming in on the and of 2 there. That's the first thing that you do. Here's another 2-measure example with dotted quarter rests in different spots, both on beat 2 and then in the next measure, beat 3. 2, here I go. 1, shh, and 4. 1 and 2, shh, and. One more time. Again, check out how I come back in on the and of 3, and then over here on the and of 4. 2, here I go. 1 and 4. 1 and 2, and. Alright guys, last screen, last slide. Here's a 6-measure example using every idea that we've talked about this lesson. I would very much suggest listening back to this example a few times, hearing me count it, so you really understand how these dotted quarter notes and dotted quarter rests fit. Alright, so here we go. 2, ready, go. 1 and 3 and 1 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 4. 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, that's it. If this was still confusing, if you're still not sure exactly how these work, please find me. Study hall, before or after school, AT, whenever it may be. I'd be more than happy to help you one-on-one. Good luck with the worksheet, and we'll see you guys in level 2. All right.